The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Almighty God, to whose glory we celebrate the anniversary of the foundings of this house of prayer 150 years ago this year. With hearts overflowing, we give you thanks for the visionaries and pioneers whose unwavering faith laid the cornerstone of this church and the fellowship of those who have worshiped in this place. Through their dedication and trust in you, they built not just a physical edifice, but a spiritual home where love can flourish and faith be cultivated. As we look to the future, grant us the wisdom and courage to continue to build on the foundation of faith in Christ, our true cornerstone. Pray that you will bless this gathering, welcome our visitors. May what we hear open our hearts into the possibilities that you have for us. And may we remain steadfast in our commitment to love one another as you've loved us, so future generations of our parish family, our community, and the world are nourished by the fruits of our love and faith in you. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, who lives and reigns with you in the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen. I'm going to turn it back over to Rich, who is going to introduce some of our speakers.
Thank you, Max Sennett. Welcome, everybody. We're glad you're with us. We're delighted to show you the work that everybody has been doing over the last, so it's approaching a year and a quarter. We started forming a building committee last March, under the 23, under the aegis of the vestry. And I'd like to introduce the architects, or at least the representatives of the architectural firm, that we chose during the process. Frank Dittenhafer, who you'll hear a lot of in a moment, and Stephanie Tincher. Guess who's been doing all the work? We formed the building committee, and there are about 30 people on it. And I'm not going to introduce all 30 people, but we set up subcommittees, and there are two that I do want to bring to your attention. One is the architecture committee that has been working very diligently, particularly over the last 6 months. And that consists of Richard Bowles over here, whom you all know, and Bill Brazis, and Kelly Felix, and John Macbeth, who is the chair, and Sue Scheit, and Ron Stupp, who is in southern France. So let's all weep a tear for Ron. There is also the steering committee, what we call the program committee, which has Bowles and Braces and Felix and Macbeth and Tim Swigert and myself, and I'm the chair of it. The whole building committee of about 36 people created a program description last July. Think of it as a requirements document. And they were told not to be constrained. That may have been a mistake. That baby grand piano wound up in some interesting places as a result of that. But nevertheless, and they put together a document that was 50 or 60 pages, I think, that described what we wanted to do in the kitchen and what we wanted to do in the sacristy and what we wanted to do in the administrative offices and so on and so forth. And that is the document that we used to select the architect. And it turned out to be Murphy and Dittenhafer, who just met Frank, and the general contractor, Lewis Construction. And they have been with us since last summer. The reason we have the contractor now is not for actually putting things together, but in order to come up with cost estimates that we can have high credence in. And as I said, the ideal solution was unconstrained at that point, and it covered all the functions we would need in the parish hall. A vocabulary explanation. This is the fellowship hall within the larger parish hall that consists of everything other than sanctuary. So that's the terminology that we're going to be using. Last September, we signed the contracts with the architect and the general contractor and the civil engineer and the lawyer. The architect created a series of design concepts through December We did a count of them, and I think we're at a dozen or so, and we're not going to go through any one of them other than the one we're presenting today. And you owe me a thanks for doing that. The general contractor costed out the December version, and what we discovered that the cost was well over budget. We have an unusual over budget. We have an unusual plot of land here, but it seemed as though, without doing too much violence to it, that we could fit everything we needed in it. But the budget would not be met, and so we had to do two things. We had to go to the vestry to ask for a higher budget, and we had to cut out various of the requirements and start putting constraints on what we wanted to be able to do. The architect redid the concept design, met the new budget, and by March we had both it and the verification from the contractor, the general contractor, that yes, it did meet the goals that we were setting. The vestry approved that budget, and we've spent April iterating on that particular design, because why are we doing this, and is it over here, and where's the bathroom over here, and you forgot a door in this room, and little stuff like that. And I want to interrupt for a moment to ask Ron Lumen to share where we are with regard to budgets and pledges and the like. Ron?
I'll just take a minute. If you remember the capital campaign we had in 2022, we always said we thought it would be a $5 million-ish project. We didn't really know. The pledges you all came up with, plus a few other little things that we were able to scrape up, we came up with a $4.2 million available funds. And the vestry decided that's close enough given what we know, and we'll give that budget to the building committee. As Rich says, it's coming in more like $6 million. My view, and the vestry concurred with this, was that we shouldn't just shoot for 6.000 million, but maybe add another 5% for unknown things like inflation and so forth. So what we're really trying to do is 6.3 million. Now, that sounds like a lot. It is a lot. But right now, there's been about 15 families of our 120 families have quietly stepped up and pledged in total another $1.75 million. Remarkable and very humbling. So we're still $350,000 short of what we think we're going to need overall. So in order to so everyone won't feel left out, this week a note with a card in it, a return card, will go out to everyone that hasn't already stepped forward, and there'll be an opportunity for you to see what additional pledge, never pledged, whoever you might be able to do. I understand everybody's in a different place, but that's where we are, 350K left.
Thank you, Ron. And you thought this was a free lunch. It's heartwarming. There's a lot of work that is going on, and when you see the support behind you when you're in a pickle, it's just gratifying, and it spurs us on to do everything that we can to make this a success. So, without saying anything more, I'm going to introduce the architect. He'll give the presentation. There'll be an opportunity for questions. And then the program committee is going to be in some sort of an informal panel in order to answer any further questions you may have for us that have nothing to do with the architect. And so, Frank, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rich. And thank you all for having Stephanie and I here with you today. The question I've had is, are you here for the presentation, or are you here for this incredible luncheon? I think I know the answer. But thanks again. As been mentioned, the last few months have been, I think, a great collaborative process with committee members. You've done a lot of work prior to our involvement, during our involvement, and it's been pretty typical, I would say. And there's just been a lot of excellent back and forth between Stephanie and I, others in our office, and your committees. So we're here today to present schematic design, which is sort of a summary. It's where we're at right now after going through, as mentioned, a number of concepts, a number of ideas, where we're at. This is not the final design. There are phases after the schematic design. So as I go through a fair amount of information, not all the finishes are selected, not every closet is shown, not every door. So there's a lot of work yet to be done, but I think we've covered a lot of territory. And we want to be here and present it to you. Again, we'll take questions. Make sure we're on the right path. We think we are. We are very excited about where we are and the process of getting there. And we have a number of slides to show you. There also will be images of those slides on boards and easels, which we intentionally don't have turned your way right now, or you'd all be up here looking at them. But they'll be here afterwards to look at, and we'll leave those with you too. So this should look familiar, because it's your existing church structure, which we have a lot of respect for, and we continue to reference whatever we've always felt from the start, whatever is designed to expand and replace the parish hall that we're in, fellowship hall, the parish hall, needs to respect this very wonderful historic building. Our office does a lot of historic preservation. I know this is we're not doing really work in the sanctuary or the church structure. It needs, what we are adding onto it, replacing the room and the building we're in, needs to be very respectful, and harmonious in terms of how it feels and looks. So we always like to start with this slide, because this is extremely important. Next slide. And again, those existing conditions are important. We may not be matching exactly all of the details, but there is a very strong, important starting point. The white color, the shutters, the window type. It's something that the massing, the pitched roofs. It is something that we feel, beyond even just the relationships of rooms and functional aspects, how it feels, how it appears, the identity and image is very important. Once we get to that point. And again, this is your existing site plan, the existing church, the existing parish hall, parking. And has been mentioned, and I'll try not to say it too many times, but it is a very sort of unusual shaped, challenging site, with the cemetery over here, and there's, the surveyor that actually with the civil engineering firm, the surveyor produced a survey and gave us, the outline of where the cemetery starts, and actually there's a 10-foot sort of setback beyond that line that we have to adhere to, in addition to the parking and the existing building. So there's a number of sort of physical constraints to the site, which is not anything we're not experienced with. We kind of embraced that, and we were going to use those constraints to really enhance the design as we move forward. Next slide. Just a little larger scale, again, the existing church, the existing sort of entry vestibule and narthex, which all look very nice, the sacristy, and again, the two-level fellowship hall that we're in, neither of which level, as you all know, is at the same level as the sanctuary, as the church. Again, there's a lower level. Again, the piece that is immediately sort of under the existing church, and then the two-level fellowship hall. And I expressed, a lot of reverence for the existing sanctuary, not as much for this building. So we understand, Stephanie and I understand why you're looking to replace this. Next slide. Again, we're in schematic design. And again, the essential starting point is that we're going to demolish this building. Thanks. Again, just sort of graphically, here is the existing church, here is the existing parish hall, there's a piece at the lower level that also will get demolished. We'll see it later. I mean, we are very much planning to utilize the lower level under the existing church. We're not abandoning it. We're going to connect to it. It's going to be very important space. Next. So just in gross sort of large scale terms, this is really the footprint. We'll show you a lot more detail on it. This is the footprint, the schematic design footprint of what we are proposing, which is covers, I think, about a little over 8,300 square feet of program space on the same level, on the first level as the existing church, and then there's a very small lower level. As you can see even in this site plan diagram, that it is really maximizing sort of every square foot and every inch that is available somewhat to build on. And it's doing it intentionally on all in one level. It is trying not to really disrupt or displace too many parking spots. Daylight today, it's impressive to see all of the vehicles out there. And yes, I put that thing off this page. But again, the cemetery, the setback line, it's a beautiful setting. But it is one we again, our approach has to really maximize, the buildable area that's there. So again, we are the existing parish hall, fellowship hall piece. This comparison is just under 3,000 square feet. And what we're proposing is a footprint of about 8,300 square feet. So it's a significantly larger footprint than what exists. Next slide. Again, this is sort of a snapshot of the basic approach to the lower level, which would match up with the lower level of the existing church. It is about a little over 800 square feet of what we'll be proposing. The primary purpose of that, I'll mention here, that we have plans that go into more detail. Primary purpose of this modest sized lower level is there is going to be an elevator, there's going to be a stair. The primary purpose is to get access to that lower level, for it to be handicap accessible, for it to be accessible to move things up and down between levels, and also to connect to a emergency egress stair. You can't just have a lower level with no means of egress out of it. So and some storage. So it is a fairly modest approach to a lower level. Some of the concepts that were explored of the 12 or 13, they had larger lower levels. They also had second floor levels, which again contributed to some of the increased costs that really didn't fit within your budget. So trying to accomplish what needs to be accomplished primarily on one level, the same level as the sanctuary, and to have a very functional and connecting sort of modest lower level seemed to be the best approach, and that was borne out by some of the preliminary costs that the contractor gave us during the conceptual and schematic design phase. Next slide. So again, just a little bit more of a pictorial, image. We have worked out schematically how we think the roof lines and massing and pieces might come together for this addition. Next slide. And this is just sort of a black and white version. We have a colored version as well, but a black and white version, it sort of shows, and here is the outline of your existing church, minus the little entry piece, because we are creating a larger sort of entry piece. But you can sort of see, again, in a very basic way, how the footprint and the various rooms are knitting itself into the buildable area. I'll show you some other drawings. There are a number of, we think, very nice and inviting entry points throughout the building on both sides of your site. I think there are really good connections and good flow. There are essentially four zones to the addition. There is sort of I'll call it a connection sort of piece where one enters and can connect back into the existing church, or connect vertically to a lower level of an elevator, and connect, to the administrative or vestry area and the multi-use sort of room. There is sort of a support zone, I'll call it. It has a kitchen, it has chair and table storage, restrooms, some housekeeping, and a nursery. There is the largest space, which is the new fellowship hall, the room that replaces this room, which is a clear span space, with slightly taller ceiling and greater capacity for seating and tables. And with a very flexible room, it doesn't have to have round tables in it, but it can be set up many different ways, and it will have a much greater capacity than this room. And then there is a classroom, sort of zone at the end. And this approach came out of, again, a number of iterations and conversations, and it adds up again to about, I think, 8,300 gross square feet. And if you include the, and we'll talk about it, I'll show you later, the fellowship hall can meet sort of the needs in terms of capacity with a folding partition, but the folding partition can be retracted and it can be a larger space. It's a very, very efficient approach. I did the math the other day. It's over an 80% efficient approach in terms of the amount of square footage you're building and walls and circulation and restrooms and things like that. So that's pretty unheard of. Usually projects are 65% maybe at best, maybe 70, but you're over 80% efficient. So it's a very efficient use of square footage. Next slide. Again, the lower level I've been sort of alluding to is again very modest. An elevator, a restroom, and some storage rooms, and a stair that I'll talk about. Next slide. So, sort of color-coded graphic version of that in a little bit more detail. And this is all of the colored areas other than this gray is the new construction footprint, 8,300 gross square feet. So the idea is to create, again, a very welcoming new entry and addition immediately next to the one there, in place of the one that exists immediately next to the existing church. We're calling it a foyer, a lobby. Sometimes it's a narthex, but it's a place to enter, to gather. It should be very comfortable, very welcoming. There should be information there, what might be going on. But it is the place to come in, and from that space, you can go further into the parish hall. You can go into the sanctuary. You can go to the sacristy there. The elevator is accessed there. The elevator has this main level has the doors opening and facing this direction. At the lower level, they open the opposite direction. So it's very efficient use. It's not uncommon for that type of elevator to be used. So there's an elevator here. There also is access from this area down a modest sort of hallway to the sort of administrative or vestry suite, which has a series of offices and meeting rooms in it. And behind the elevator, and before you get to that suite, is what we think is going to be a very, very well-used multi-use room. In fact, we're calling it a multi-use room. There's been all kinds of program ideas of how to use it. It's, I think, a very, very nice, well-used room. It's in really the center of the plan, very easily accessed. It also is the room that in the part of the expansion that abuts the stained glass window on the end of the church. And we've taken great care in our schematic thinking to preserve that and make it actually a feature and a part of this room. That it could still get daylight. We are proposing some skylights. There could be natural daylighting. There also would be artificial daylighting, so that presence of that stained glass window that's now on the exterior is not lost. That its presence will be visible in the church and in this room, as part of the design. And again, I think this will be a well-used, very important room. Another aspect which I think we're very pleased with how it worked out in the end was, though it's sort of very functional in nature, is there is the stair, the egress stair that has to go down to the lower level. The stair needs to sort of exit out to the exterior, but you need to get into it from the interior without going through all the details. We have a stair that you can get to from two directions that goes down to the lower level, and performs that purpose. So we've incorporated that into sort of this zone of the project. Again, this would be, I think, a very warm, welcoming space. And then into this space, again, we think there's a very nicely positioned nursery. It has windows, it has natural daylighting, it has some storage within it. It is near housekeeping. And then there are new hands-free, accessible restrooms, men's and women's restrooms, really, again, right in an excellent location to service all kinds of functions, not just in the fellowship hall, but sort of in this part. We have a nice, good-sized chair table storage room, which in our experience is critical to the best functioning projects like this. We are currently showing the room, a storage room that can be accessed from two directions and using pocket doors. So that we don't have to deal with door swings, we can maximize the footprint, and you can move things in and out from two directions. That may mean that the utilization and access from the lower level via the elevator, is quite easy. Here's the elevator, here's the pocket doors in the storage room. And then again, we're too early to get into the layout of the kitchen, which is a very important part. But we have preserved, I think, a very nice size square footage area for the kitchen, which will have a lot of equipment in it, but lots of counter space more than anything. Counter space all around the perimeter, work tables are in the center, a very nice window sort of counter area for functions like this. So we've set this up schematically, for success, we think, with direct access, outside to bring things in and out before and after any type of function. All of that is, again, a lot of it is sort of set up to support the new fellowship hall. Again, what you're seeing graphically, and again, it's very flexible. There are no columns. It can have no tables. It could have round tables. It could have, some rectangular tables. It could have a performance in it. But this is about 1,480 square feet. It's showing, and here is the folding partition. That folding partition is a high-quality acoustical partition. This is not sort of a flimsy thing that you can sort of hear everything that's going on the other side. And this is one that is not inexpensive, but it's sort of a quality folding partition that will pocket over here. There will be doors in it that you can go in and out. And if the partition is extended and out, you can still accommodate just under 100 seats in this fashion at 12 round tables. If the partition is folded and pocketed, there is an additional, I think it's about 700 gross square feet. And again, not that you would pack it full of tables, but you can fit another, I think it was another, here it is, another 8 tables. So if it was jam-packed, which you probably would never do that, you can approach accommodating 200 people. The 150 number, I think, is a really sweet spot in our experience. So you can easily accommodate a lot of functions. It's a very flexible arrangement here. But if with the partition, the folding partition pocketed, you have even that much more space. Let's go back to the, So when you have the flexibility to, again, probably grow into and learn how it works best for you. But there is this wonderful multi-purpose sort of zone out there, which we envision would have nice glass and furniture, soft seating. It is not to be, and we went through concepts where the green sort of corridor circulation kind of cut right through here, and we had discussions, and we abandoned that approach for this one. Instead of a dedicated circulation that is nothing more than hallway circulation, we are endorsing this approach, which gives you this multi-purpose room to use, how it works best for you, how you program it. There can be obviously meetings, classes, simultaneous usage with the folding partition. And again, this is not sort of giving space over to just hallways and circulation. But I think this is, again, schematically set up very nicely. There is a main entrance with sort of a covered porch area out towards the parking lot. This can function set up with doors here, doors there. It can function independently. It doesn't, the church or even the rest of the expansion does not need to be open. It can be secured, and there would be ways that this can really function independently for all kinds of events. Here's the kitchen, and it's accessed here, and there can be pre-function things happening here. And we also are showing a number of doors that could be open and a fair amount of glass on the other side. So daylight, natural daylighting, even though there would be window treatment, natural daylighting. This is to be a really nice, accommodating, flexible space. And then the last design again, which is shown very graphically here, is the classroom piece. Not on the second level, not on the lower level, but on grade. And it's a series of 4 classrooms. They are all at least 300 gross square feet. I think 3 of them are 320 and 1 is 300. This partition is the other folding partition that we are proposing for the project. It can be retracted into this area, and that this can be one larger classroom space, workspace, again, for multi-function. So you have that capability here, 2 other classrooms here, restroom here. There are windows and really nice daylighting into all 4 classrooms. Next. Again, you see that. The lower level, again, our intention is to really sort of minimize the scope, the construction scope, I should say, not minimizing the importance of the lower level at all. Minimize the construction scope. So the new construction is this sort of green color plus this area here. The elevator comes down here, the door opens on the opposite side, and then it is really a sort of a question of how do we carve up this area. Here's the stair. You can go up the stair here, you can and get to the landing and go outside. But we will continue to work with the committees in your group for storage areas, restroom down there in the best way possible. The other objective of the lower level is that this, again, sort of modest lower level construction will allow access to the other existing rooms that are down there or slightly modified existing rooms. I think there was a partition that was in here that we are removing to create a really nice larger choir room. Doing a little bit of work in this area for the praise band and going to utilize a lot of the other spaces for storage that are down there. So again, we're maximizing the utilization of the lower level as much as possible without kind of over maybe spending on the lower level. This is just sort of a three-dimensional graphic beyond the floor plans. Kind of probably got a better feel for some of the flow from the entry area, or right from the entry area here, back towards the existing church. Here's that really nice multi-use space. The elevator is here. The administrative suite here. Kitchen, the other support rooms, the nursery room here. Again, the circulation sort of goes this direction. There is the first level, sort of multi-function space I talked about, adjunct to the new fellowship hall, kitchen here. Again, lots of daylight, which we think will make all the difference in the appeal of the fellowship hall. There are certainly fellowship halls that don't have any daylight. And there are times you may want to darken the room, which you would be able to do in what we're proposing. And again, sort of the classroom suite that is at the end here, which works very well, again, for natural daylight. It can be accessed independently. So a little bit of a 3D graphic. This is the cemetery over here. We did not accurately show the sizes of all the tombstones. Next. This is sort of a square foot summary of what I've just shown here. I mean, this is sort of the schematic plan, the schematic design, summary of the gross square footage, actually the net square footage, which we did not include in the walls. So that 8311 gross square foot, which is the wall thicknesses and everything. If we do not include the fellowship hall, the multi-purpose area, it's about 6,000 square feet, but there's about 700 plus square feet. If you add that in, again, you're over 80% efficient in the square footage you're building and utilization of it. The lower level, again, which is fairly modest, we're adding 785 square feet, and this is the entire amount of square footage at that lower level that would be utilized in our. So here are just some schematic views. I don't want you to think this is the final design, but Stephanie and I and some other people in our office, we can put together, even at this schematic stage, some images of how it would look. This is if you're flying over in your helicopter. There are trees up there. But again, the idea is that it's a fairly sizable footprint for the reasons I said. But we want it. That wasn't a good song. We want it to really blend in and fit in and not overpower the church. And so we're very careful, very thoughtful. We look at a lot of options. We don't want to have anything that is competing with the sort of the gable massing of the church right up next to the church. We want a little breathing room before we get to, say, the fellowship hall, which again is a clear span sort of structure. And yet we want to sort of have maybe the classroom piece, which is sort of at the end of what we're proposing, have some gable pitched roofs on. We do, at this stage, our thinking is that everything that we are adding on, it could be white in color, it could be a continuation of the board and batten. There are composite materials out there that look pretty good. They're not wood, but they're maintenance free in terms of board and batten. And certainly all the other components, could be white, gutters, downspouts, fascias, soffits. So there could be a very elegant approach to a fairly sizable, relatively speaking, expansion here, that everything feels right, fits together in harmony and not in competition. Is our next. A few interior views. Again, these are schematic, but the new sort of main entry foyer space. Again, we're thinking it could be some wood in there. There could be a nice carpet. There could be tables, chairs. Maybe there's a flat screen that shows what's going on. Tack board. The elevator is over here. So it's a nice crossroads and welcoming space, and it has some daylight. You can see who's coming and going. Maybe we'll reuse your red doors there. Maybe we won't. Next. That multi-use space, again, we want to preserve and feature. The stained glass windows, which we intend to do there. Our thought is to actually have the construction of the roof and with some skylights in it go up around the stained glass windows. This actually our building code, fire code investigations thus far have indicated that there needs to be a 2-hour fire rated wall between our expansion and the existing church, which is not that uncommon. So this will be a rated wall, and you can get 2-hour fire rated clear glass. So that's our intention. Even with a fire rated wall, we have really high hopes that this will be a wonderful room to be in. The qualities of it, very flexible, very well utilized. Next. Again, snapshot schematically of the fellowship hall, which is the largest space in the project. Again, we want to have a ceiling height that is taller, obviously, in a room of that size, which is wider, a better proportioned space than this space, not just larger square footage wise, but wider, more flexible. We might sort of then integrate some wood, but then some very nice. There are a number of ceiling systems that can be articulated, that are acoustical in nature and elegant. We want to just give you a very nice, not institutional fellowship hall, again, maybe with the ability for daylight and access out of either side. Next one. Again, maybe how might it all look, if you were across the street or going down the road, it all kind of comes together. Some pieces, like the fellowship hall piece, maybe have a slightly larger, taller roof over it. Even though the interior isn't sort of reflecting that roof, that could provide us with some very valuable locations for mechanical equipment or other things. The contractor has indicated to us that structurally, no one will see the structure of this, that the most economical way to build the expansion is using steel, not engineered wood. So we've already gotten some good input there. Next. Again, just another view. Again, there'd be a nice covered porch at the entry, sort of a covered area right outside of the new fellowship hall. Daylight, and we'll spend a lot more time studying, window locations and sizes and things like that. We're just that schematic design, but it all kind of, it's intentionally isn't sort of on the same plane. It has sort of some bumps and grinds. It comes in and out. We want it to have some interest, to be articulated a bit. But when you sort of look at it, or what's the feel of the entire edition, that it is cohesive and harmonizes, even though there's quite a variety of spaces in the edition. Next. And even sort of around to the side or the rear, that again, it would sort of nestle itself in here. No, there's nothing on the actual grass or ground that shows that you can't build across a certain line, but we're really hugging that setback line with our addition. Next slide. And again, so the overall key thing with the overall feeling is one of sort of very inviting, very comfortable, very harmonious. I mean, that's sort of what we're shooting for. We don't want anything to sort of jump out too much one way or the other. I think that next one. And some other views. Next one. That's it. So. The schematic design presentation, Stephanie and I would be glad to take any questions on any.
Will the new part of the building be sprinklered?
Yes.
Will the church be sprinkled?
The code does not require the church to be sprinkled. The 2-hour separation is what we have to do to avoid that.
But we should say that dealing with the county is in front of us as opposed to behind us. And so the issue of fire suppression, stormwater management, setback from the cemetery is all going to have to be gone through. The most that we can ask the architect to do right now is follow the code, which they are. Whether that's the code that will be asked to follow by the county is another question.
Yes.
How many of the existing trees will have to be sacrificed along the parking lot?
The site plan, I mean, the ones that are beyond
I think only one.
the one that's go back to the existing.
The chestnut tree.
I mean, we don't want to take down any more than are necessary for sure. Going back, I think there was the tree. That one. So I think there's, well, I'll say two. Maybe that one. If that one is out inside the setback line, I think it might be one. Two of them. Yeah.
I'm concerned about the light in the three windows. Sitting in church this morning and looking at the windows, the natural light is a really important element for us. How can you guarantee that the degree of natural light we have lighting those windows will remain the same?
Well,
I mean, you know, skylights are all well and good, but
well,
there's a limit.
No, you're absolutely right. We envision that artificial light, in addition to the natural light, is what we should have there. We don't want to depend totally on the skylights and natural light. We want to have that option, but we envision having some artificial lighting to supplement that, so you don't lose whatever, you know, effect we want to make.
Can you model that so you have a high degree of certainty before you actually do it, so we're not disappointed in what we?
It's possible. It's possible.
I would want that. One more concern I have, you know, you have the roof, the roofing attempts to sort of integrate with the existing church, but the other elements, the glass, the pillars, there's a considerable modern aspect of this rendering. Have you done a concept that actually takes the design of the church and applied it to this that we might see as well?
We have considered that, and our concern is we don't want to try to mimic exactly, literally, you know, the historic church. We don't want to try to, because it's not, first of all. It's a completely different type of building. And if you did that, again, I think it might be awkward because it's, you know, it's a large fellowship hall and other things. Our investigations are that there's a better approach, which would be to learn from the details and those elements you're referencing, and not do it in a, I wouldn't call it a contemporary manner, but do it in a sympathetic manner that is not literally using the same details, but it's sort of using a family of details that is compatible. If it's fascias, you know, if it's window, if it's muntins. I mean, we're not coming in with a non-muntin window approach as an example. So there's still a lot of study to do there. We want to find the right balance. What we show that's sort of new is new, but it's very compatible with the historic church.
It would be nice to see an attempt at that and compare it to what we've done.
Sure. I mean, we're very sensitive to that topic. Yeah.
Like square columns instead of round columns.
We have square columns.
Okay, on the front view, the Skaggsville Road view, where you go into, look back up, back to, back.
Good.
One more.
Yeah.
Okay, where the 4 columns are, that area. Could that be brought out and be working space rather than open space? Or what is its function as an open space? Why is it that way?
We have, you know, in the plan, it's a entry lobby area to meet, gather, there's chairs. So this is outside of that. You know, the thinking is that it's just a bit of coverage from weather or to meet and gather and talk out there prior to entering or after exiting. So it's intentionally an outdoor covered area to supplement what's happening immediately inside there. My experience is a lot of conversations and a lot of important things happen before and after, and sometimes they need to happen outside of the building versus inside. So it's not a large area, but it's intentionally outside. You know,
What is the
dimension of it, I don't know, 8 feet. It's around 8 or 9 feet. It's not a large. Good question. Yes.
This is just a quick comment, and I could be wrong, but if we, going back to the importance of the stained glass
Yes.
in the sanctuary, I mean, if you're adding skylights for natural light, and you're also providing artificial light, I think the flip side of the benefit is that you'll have a better view of that stained glass and appreciate it more for the nighttime
Oh,
services.
absolutely. That's exactly what is possible. Yes. Yes.
For the fellowship hall, when that partition is opened,
Yeah.
how does the total square footage we'll have compared with the square footage we have in this room now?
Yeah. Yeah, so you're gonna get an increase of about 40% when it's completely open. So right now you're at about 1,500 square feet, and if the partition is open, you'll be at about 2,200 square feet.
And I said not just 2,200 square feet, considerably more square footage, but a dimension, a width and length that are much different than this too.
I have a question for Rich. Will all of the functions that are being done in the parish house be contained in this new building, or will there still be a need for the parish house?
We haven't done a detailed study. Certainly all the administrative work comes over. Are there other functions besides administrative work?
I would say there will be a need for it, but I'm sure it can be used.
Okay, looking for a place to rent on?
Or a place to sell.
Except for we need the parking lot.
Yes, we need to.
We're not gonna get into that discussion here. That's a quasi-theological one.
Are there focused light pipes that could be directed at the church windows? Are there
You
windows?
mean for natural lighting?
Yeah. I can't tell if there is any light coming in this wall, but could some be kind of in that direction?
It's a
Are
possibility.
there focused light pipes?
You can do things like that. Yeah, I mean, we'll explore, some options. What's the best option for natural light in and the artificial?
There are 8 skylights, 4 on each side of the room.
Okay, so they're both covered in this, okay. For light use, you wouldn't have to.
Well, absolutely. That was the thinking. We weren't going to depend on weather or natural or daylight. We want to have the ability to highlight, feature those stained glass windows.
Just using that room is gonna require light.
Oh, yeah, I think it's going to be, again, my prediction is going to be a very popular, well-used room.
The genesis of that room was adult education. And the challenge that you have trying to do adult education in here while coffee hour is going on 10 feet away. And so it's a completely separate room. It can easily hold 40 people, which is our thumbnail guess as to the number of people who usually attend, or the max that will attend adult education. People were talking about brides parlors if there are weddings. We don't have as many weddings, but you can remove all the chairs from the room, put other furniture in there. So it's hopefully it'll turn out to be quite an overused room.
The problem with this room for adult ed has been getting it dark enough to show slides and movies. With the 8 skylights, will that be an issue? Or will they have shades or?
Oh, we can specify shading.
And remember, we'll be using TV screens, not projection.
You still, if you have too much ambient light, you still can't see a
Yeah,
TV.
we'll have screens. Are there any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. If I could have the program committee people come up, please. And you might want to stretch a bit, but let's say in 5 minutes we'll be here to answer questions. And we'll have these boards flipped
So
around.
it was, if you enter the building, then you go straight to the and it would go, just as you walk in, that's the entry point. Yeah. And actually, there's going to be some plan views on the boards that might be better.
Double check this, make sure it's still recording. It is. Oh no, I got a phone right there.
Oh, sorry. I didn't touch anything.
No, you're good. I just want to make sure that it's still running.
Yeah. I was going to show her where the new office is actually. Alright, so if you enter in, here's the new lobby, right?
Yeah.
And the parking lot. So if you come in, you'll have a chance to turn this way to go to the existing church, turn this way to go to the new fellowship hall, or go straight, and then you have the new offices down here. So there's a work area, the rector's office is here, and then an assistant. Yeah. Well, so actually, no, this is a stairwell to the basement. They took for building code reasons. They need to have like direct access to the exterior of the basement. But if he's, in service, his office is here, his resting room is here, and then he can go straight from his office to the resting room into the yeah, so nice big space. Oh, sure, yeah.
See, now I can see it.
Yeah. But yeah, nice big kitchen. Like Frank was saying, we don't have all the appliances laid out and stuff there. It's a generous space for the kitchen. So everybody should have plenty of space.
Oh my gosh.
I'll defer to John and Rich for that. Right. I was going to say, I really like the way the plan incorporates all the functions that we need. Yeah, and we don't have a lot of overlap.
Right, good.
I think if you could take a picture of it and send it, we'll get close to it.
Do that.
Okay. Does anybody want to engage the program committee, or are we done? Done? Okay, folks, we've got the program committee here available to answer any questions. We're happy to do so. And if you want to get home and watch the Orioles beat up the Reds again, that's okay too.
I like it, everybody's. Oh, yeah, I can live with it. Are you kidding me? I would have to cross the street to. Oh, I'll be happy. Are you kidding me? As long as the extra is happy. The next record's happening.
You haven't run, you didn't run her off.
What's that?
You didn't run her off.
No, not yet. Not yet. Is Nancy on the picture? She's not. So we have to survey. Exactly, exactly. Well, and how we do it. So this is what we're trying to do. Because there are several options. And I think she exactly. And then we want any staff. So what I think that's what we want to do. So it's basically, and I'd like to do this. Now, I'm not asking for a match, but I got because we've lost all our relevance. Well, no, I mean, really love it. But I would like to do some.
Did you stop that recording?
Right. Exactly. Well, and it's interesting because you can do it even if a person's you can opt to